Nihility, non-existence, or nothingness. Not exactly how I would describe unending pain from debuffs, but hey, what do I know? Hello everyone, my name is Christian, and today I want to talk about Nihility, its characters, and how it's changed. This path has a special place in my heart, as it contains my first two characters who I really loved and constantly used, in Kafka and Acron. While I may not use these characters as much anymore, I still like them a lot and look forward to finally talking about them. With all that said, let's get into it. Also, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing down below. As a small channel, it really does help out a lot. Alright, back to the video. So what does the Path of Nihility actually entail gameplay-wise? Well, the game describes it as, applies debuffs to enemies to reduce combat capacities. Riveting. How about I break it down a little bit more? Nihility's primary focus as a path is entirely on debuffs, but reducing enemy capacities makes it sound more like a traditional RPG, where the focus is always on making enemies slower, have less attack, less defense, etc. While that does exist in Star Rail, don't get me wrong, the way this manifests in Star Rail is far from just those ways. Nihility early on was primarily a damage path, so those debuffs manifested not only in things like defense down from Pela, but also in various forms of elemental damage over time. Some examples are Wind Shear, Burn, and Shock as the most common forms. Alongside this, most characters cannot inflict DOT and traditional debuffs at the same time. This is already a pretty big deviation from how other games work, I feel, with most characters usually having everything available to them. But for Nihility, that's just the standard fare. There are numerous different types of characters on this path, and it is slowly turned into a jack-of-all-trades path with the ability to debuff being the only requirement. A character like Fugue is a pretty big example of this, and while we will discuss her later, she's an example of how easily the path can be molded to whatever the developers need. Now that we have the groundwork laid out, let's actually move on to the history of characters in this path. We have three types we can discuss with Nihility, and first up, I'm absolutely going to be biased and discuss my favorite of the types, DOT or Damage Over Time characters. Now if you're a newer player, you may not be too familiar with DOT. This is because a true DOT character hasn't been released since version 2.0. I miss my Damage Over Time characters, man. These types of Nihility characters have essentially disappeared from Star Rail altogether. At the time of writing, we're still waiting for the Kafka buffs, which I hope will be extremely impactful, but that doesn't quite make up for the overall weakness of all the other characters in the DOT role at this point. Characters like Sampo, Black Swan, and Luca are all older characters whose power level simply isn't at the necessary level to even keep up with someone like Aglaya. Aglaya is who many consider one of the weakest new DPS characters to be released, which, by the way, I don't really agree with that, but hey, what are you gonna do? DOT has not had any proper support since Black Swan was introduced into the game over a year ago, sadly. This brief history might have been a bit excessive, but since DOT has been absent for so long, I really did feel it necessary for newer players watching. With that established, we can now talk about the earliest queens of Nihility before the path had begun to change. The characters who really represented the path for most players, Kafka, and later on, Black Swan. Kafka is an extremely unique character, so we're going to cover Black Swan first. She matches the style of many of the other early Nihility characters, while also just being way better than them. So, Black Swan is a wind character who focuses on applying her signature debuff, Arcana. The interesting part about Arcana is that while it is a debuff and does inflict damage over time, it also is capable of massively raising its own damage floor. It should be on screen right now, but Arcana can not only increase the DOT damage multiplier for Black Swan, not only will it have a chance to stack when enemies take any form of DOT damage, but you can receive different effects based on how many Arcana stacks you have. If you have 3 or more stacks, you'll deal damage to adjacent targets as well as the primary target being hurt initially. Then, if you have 7 or more stacks, the current DOT damage dealt will ignore 20% of the primary target and adjacent target's defense. Honestly, a really nice mechanic that is a fun way to not have to rely on Kafka, and allows for some good multi-target offense instead of just using blast attacks. The fun with Arcana doesn't end here though. Every single attack Black Swan does is capable of inflicting these Arcana stacks, from basic attack to ultimate. This is built into all of her attacks though, unlike a character like Sampo whose DOT stacks are tied to his talent. This is once again 4-star versus 5-star privilege, but it is genuinely a very big privilege, with Black Swan's talent allowing for a lot more than any other DOT. I made mention of it, but Black Swan has a 65% chance to apply another Arcana stack whenever enemies take DOT damage. So by already having a debuff on the character, you're far more likely to be rewarded with even more damage output. Somehow, that's still not the end though. Arcana is clearly very powerful and pretty essential to Black Swan's kit, right? Well, what if there was a way to keep your Arcana stacks for longer to deal even more damage? Let me introduce you to Black Swan's ultimate, Bliss of Otherworld's Embrace.
Beneath the silent waters lies an endless abyss!
Essentially, this will inflict Epiphany on enemies, which increases damage taken during their turn by 25%. Your Arcana stacks are now counted as every form of DOT damage at once, meaning all of those have their own chance to apply yet another Arcana stack. The cherry on top of all of this is that you will still get to retain your current Arcana stacks after their next use, meaning even more time to reach that max stack limit of 50 and get even more big damage. This ultimate does also do damage to enemies, but I'm gonna be honest, no one cares about that, let's be honest here. After everything I just told you, and how interesting of a design this is, her skill also reduces defense by 20%. Black Swan is easily one of the most impressive characters to ever be created for a specific path. Her kit is built entirely around the core mechanics of the path, and you are rewarded an unbelievable amount by committing to that team and their playstyle. While Black Swan's kit really fails to survive today since she's so heavily built for DOT, she is still easily one of my favorite designs in the entire game, and she did wonders for a team type that was really dying out before her. She was built as an ultimate partner character, and she succeeds in that role while also rising above it. She could only rise so far early on though, because waiting at the summit to greet her was Kafka, a DOT character unlike any other. Kafka is a Lightning 5-star, who was released in version 1.2 of Honkai Star Rail. When I tell you there is no other character like her in this game, I really do mean it. Kafka for a long time was the true engine of DOT, and the only way to make it truly function. I've seen people argue against this nowadays, but that doesn't change the fact that Kafka is one of the best characters you could get for this archetype. It's all linked to one simple reason as well: her skill. Caressing Moonlight, which is an incredible name, is a blast attack that not only does 160% of Kafka's attack to the primary target, but if the target is currently receiving DOT, all DOTs currently placed on that enemy will immediately produce damage equal to 75% of their original damage. This often results in a massive amount of damage, considering not only Kafka is capable of applying a DOT, but her best teammates can all apply one or even multiple a turn. When I tell you this is the only thing we need to talk about with Kafka, I'm serious. This skill is the entire reason for her existence, and it is as important to Kafka as Acron's ult is to Acron. No other character in the game has the ability to detonate multiple DOTs, or hell, even a DOT that isn't their own. As a result of this, Kafka stands alone as one of the most unique characters in all of Star Rail history. To this day, I'll never understand why no other character was given this in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, if they just wanted to market Kafka, that would be fair, but almost any other character with a unique mechanic has had it redone somewhere else. Not to mention, DOT has been dead for a while, so it could have made sense to reinvent and make it stronger with someone new. This is such an interesting thing to have slipped through the cracks, but regardless, Kafka is the only one who has this ability. Also, before anyone gets on me, technically Gwenhyfin can detonate her own, but again, that's only her own. It's very different. Kafka and Black Swan were a powerful duo that greatly enhanced each other to a level DOT had never seen before. It was nice for a while, but something was brewing. A change in the path we had come to know. However, it wouldn't be a permanent change, and more importantly, it was something that no one would have seen coming. The second type of Nihility character on our list today isn't a set like DOT was. This section contains one character and one character only, and her name is Acron. Acron is a character unlike any other in HSR, and especially unlike the rest of the Nihility path. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Acron cannot inflict debuffs without her signature light cone. She can inflict something called Crimson Knots, but those are more of a way to enhance her ult damage. I don't really know how to describe it in an easy way, but long story short, they don't deal any form of DOT damage and only do something when Acron ults. Not having access to any debuffs is already unheard of for the Nihility path, but it doesn't end there either. Acron relies entirely on crit stats to succeed. something that was unheard of for the Nihility path up to this point. Every single Nihility character before Acron focused on 3 things: speed up to a certain breakpoint, enough effect hit rate to make sure your debuffs go off, so usually somewhere in the 60 range, and as much attack as humanly possible. To switch away from these core parts of the identity of Nihility was an insane change, and to this day, many people see Acron more as Acron rather than a Nihility character. She really is that different from how normal Nihility works, but interestingly enough, she's still linked heavily to the path with her kit. Also, her story, since she is literally cursed by the Nihility, but hey, I'm just here to talk about game mechanics, man. Acron has a trace called the Abyss, requiring 2 Nihility characters to reach her full potential. With this trace active, Acron's damage across the board increases significantly from what it normally is. This trace combos perfectly with what Acron wants: debuffs. Nihility characters are the easiest to inflict debuffs after all, and debuffs are literally required for Acron to function as a character. Acron is reliant on her ultimate for essentially all of her damage. It is a massive multiplier and can hit all enemies on the field, but this ultimate can only be acquired through debuffs. For every debuff placed on an enemy target, Acron will gain 1 stack of Slashed Dream. When she has 9 stacks, her ultimate can be activated to do the devastating damage that she's known for. At the time of her release, no other character in Star Rail had this sort of ultimate, and only one other character was as reliant on their ultimate to do damage. All in all, Acron is not only one of the most unique characters in the history of Star Rail, but somehow one of the best aging to this day. While DOT has mostly fallen off a cliff at the time of writing, Acron still holds strong as one of Star Rail's best all-around characters if you really invest in her. She has the ability to destroy multiple targets at once, her damage can still hold up against single target fights with her Crimson Knot multipliers, and when hyper-invested, she has the flexibility to take advantage of one of the largest pools of characters in the game. Acron mains will continue to swear by her until the day she dies, and while she may not be great for the more casual player, her strength this far into the game is simply undeniable. Like I said earlier, as good as Acron is, she still doesn't truly represent Nihility today. She is simply a great character on the Nihility path. To truly understand what Nihility is, we need to move on to the final type of character on this path. None other than the Defense Shredders. I've left this type for last not because it was the newest form of Nihility, but because this is the true future of Nihility. Defense Shredders have existed in Star Rail for as long as the game has been out. Pela, one of the oldest characters in the game, guess what? She is a Defense Shredder. Her whole job is to ult the enemy to weaken them, and then gain her ult back ASAP. Defense Shredders have actually been the most consistent form of character in the Nihility path, with 6 different characters having the ability to lower enemy defense or increase damage taken. Let's now take a look at some of them to learn more about this type of character. Let's start with Gwynnifyn. Gwynnifyn as a character is interesting, since she not only afflicts DOT, but can also increase damage taken by enemies. A hybrid Nihility was certainly interesting, and while she isn't the best nowadays by any means unfortunately, she still has a very interesting kit. Gwynnifyn's talent Fire Kiss is what allows her to increase damage taken. This is applied whenever enemies take burn damage, and will increase enemy damage taken by 7% for 3 turns. At E6, this can stack up to 4 times, allowing for a 28% increase in damage taken. It can definitely take a minute to get the full stacks, but this is genuinely a pretty good damage increase. Gwynnifyn can also inflict a free stack of Fire Kiss on an enemy when she uses her technique. It was clear that Gwynnifyn was the next defense shred option in the game for players who lack the early game characters of Silverwolf and Pela, and she performed fairly well in this role. Eventually, her time in the spotlight ended though, when the next Nihility came out, Black Swan. We've already talked about Black Swan, but it's important to emphasize something here. This was now 2 characters in a row who had damage increase or defense shred as part of their kits. Black Swan definitely leaned more into her DOT nature, but a defense reduction of almost 21% was still very admirable, and allowed her to further benefit more teams apart from just DOT at the time. This feature in Nihility kits was clearly becoming more relevant again, until finally, the designers realized it was time for the path to change. The next Nihility after Acron was a support dedicated entirely to helping her, Jiao Cho. Jiao Cho is the perfect representation of Nihility today. No longer a primary DPS, but a support that perfectly helps characters reach past their ceiling. So what does Jiao Cho do exactly? Well, his usefulness is tied entirely to his signature debuff, Ashen Roast. You'll see his talent on screen now, but when Jiao Cho hits an enemy with basic attack, skill, or ultimate, there is a 100% chance to inflict 1 stack of Ashen Roast on them. 1 stack increases damage received by 15%. Then, each subsequent stack increases this by 5%, and this can stack up to 5 times. Oh, and also, when an enemy target is afflicted with Ashen Roast, they are also considered as being burned at the same time, taking fire DOT equal to 180% of Jiao Cho's attack at the start of each turn. Jiao Cho's damage dealing capabilities are truthfully pretty worthless when his talent is already so good. The max damage increase without any other boost that you can get from Jiao Cho is about 35%. The fun doesn't end there though, since his ultimate will also increase ultimate damage taken by 15% flat out. I wonder who that's for. He fulfills the Nihility requirement to increase her damage, while also giving a massive damage boost just by existing. He's overall a fantastic character that greatly helps further what Acron is capable of. He also set a standard for the Nihility path going forward, which is still yet to be broken. The final 2 characters to talk about today still embody this design of a support, while being vastly different from Jiao Cho. The first of these is Fugue, my favorite overall character in Star Rail. I love Fugue mainly for her story, but it does help that she is pretty fun gameplay-wise. Fugue is a Nihility break support. What? Well, break has no specific path, and instead is an entire character design type, and Fugue is no different. Her skill gives characters the ability to break anything, while also increasing the break effect for the selected character. She's also the only other source of super break in the entire game, not requiring her ult to unlock it unlike the Trailblazer. She's a massive boost for any break team, and is the last break support to be released so far. With everything I've said, to many players this would probably seem like I'm talking about a Harmony unit, no? This is what I personally thought she would be when resurrected, but no. She is indeed Nihility, and it's all linked to one thing. She has the ability to lower enemy defense by 18% with her enhanced basic attack. While her ult is also more offense focused, this feels like the main reason for Fugue's path. She was a character that needed to focus on break specifically, and she could easily be molded to the Nihility path by adding this feature in. With Nihility being a more support-oriented path now, it makes sense that characters who developers don't want to be Harmony can be made into Nihility. This may sound a bit ridiculous, but this keeps up with the final Nihility character of today, Cypher. Cypher is a character who has a follow-up and dishes out a good deal of damage through her own unique mechanic. However, she's Nihility. She helps increase your team's damage while once again being more of a sub-DPS or support option rather than a primary DPS. Cypher is the first Nihility in a while to have the chance to be more of a main DPS, but it just isn't likely without Eidolons. With Cypher's inclusion in the game, it's clear that this is what Nihility has become. It's not bad by any means, but it's simply interesting to see how the path got here. Just listen to me for a second. Nihility started out as a bizarre path with no rhyme or reason to it at all. Then, along came Kafka, giving the path a focus it didn't really have before. It wasn't the strongest focus, but it was there regardless. After not really leaning into this direction too hard with Black Swan and Gwynifen, both having other utility outside of raw damage, we ultimately saw a huge pivot after Acron to Nihility becoming a support-oriented path. A path that serves the opposite purpose of Harmony. While Harmony is the support path that boosts characters up to become stronger, Nihility is the path that tears enemies down to become weaker. It's truly an interesting yin and yang design, and while I do miss my DOT characters, this design change really is enjoyable from a gameplay and game design sense. While I'm sure many people may not be as thrilled with the state of Nihility, or maybe just don't care about the path at all since it's pretty specific, I really do enjoy what the path has been molded into. There finally seems to be an identity here, which you couldn't say for the longest time about this godforsaken path. I may still be hoping for the return of DOT or another primary DPS of the Nihility path, but for now, I think that this is a great spot to be in. Hey everybody, Editor Chris here to say one thing and one thing only. Hysolence. Thank you so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. Also, I apologize if my voice was a bit different during this one, I don't really know what happened. At this point, I'm probably going to start making a video covering every path in Star Rail individually, since these videos are really interesting and allow me to kind of see and understand things that I never would have otherwise. I really hope that you guys have kind of enjoyed these types of videos, and hey, if there's a specific path that you want to see next, leave it down below, and hopefully I'll knock it out next. With that said, plenty of good content coming up, so I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.